Welcome to the deep dive. If you're joining us today, you are likely looking for that sweet spot. You want the most captivating insights, the real substance of a complex topic, but you absolutely want to skip that feeling of drowning in information overload.
Right. Nobody wants to feel like they're reading a textbook.
Exactly. And today, we have a truly incredible journey mapped out for you. We are plunging headfirst into the lush, dark, and just incredibly intricate mythos of the Flat Earth.
It's such a massive universe.
It really is. Our guide for this exploration is a stack of excerpts from Tanith Lee's landmark fantasy novel, Delirium's Mistress.
Which is a text that completely redefines the boundaries between humanity and monsters. I mean, we're going to explore a world where magic doesn't just involve, waving a wand. It operates on these intense, almost psychological rules.
Yeah, the stakes are so much higher.
They really are. Our mission today is to extract the most memorable stories and magical mechanics from this universe, looking really closely at the complex interplay of love, madness, and transformation.
Okay, let's unpack this, because before we even step foot into a realm of demons and stolen shadows, the real-world story of how this book came to be is a fascinating narrative all on its own.
Oh, the backstory is wild.
Right. The author had to take this massive detour from writing it, and the reason why completely bleeds into the themes of the book itself.
Yeah, what's fascinating here is the meta-context provided right in the author's introduction. Tanith Lee actually stepped away from this sprawling fantasy universe because she was entirely sidelined by a sudden, intense obsession with the French Revolution.
Of all things.
I know. She became captivated by a historical figure named Camille Desmoulins. And this wasn't just a passing interest. It grabbed her body and soul to the point where she put Delirium's Mistress on hold to write a massive, I think it's a 500-page historical novel called The Gods Are Thirsty.
I just love that detail. You're deep into building this phantasmagorical world of ancient gods and underground crystal cities, and suddenly a real-world story of rebellion and the guillotine pulls you away entirely.
It's such a drastic shift in tone.
But reading through the sources, that detour perfectly sets up the thematic core she returns to when she finally resumes the fantasy sequence. She frames the book around a single profound question. But what is love?
That's the anchor for everything that happens next.
Exactly. And she grounds this in her underlying belief within the Flat Earth universe that death is never an obliteration. It is always a metamorphosis.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, in a world where death is just a change of state, the stakes of love and vengeance become eternal. Everything is about transformation. We see this immediately in the dynamic between two characters we meet early on, Lakhezor and Olaru.
Let's bring those two into the conversation, because the contrast between them is startling. Lakhezor is this incredibly cruel, powerful magician prince.
Pure sadism.
Pure sadism. He's obsessed with dark artifacts. He's the kind of guy who demands terror from everyone around him. And his constant companion is Olaru, a beautiful, golden-haired poet who acts like the ultimate coward. We are talking about a man who literally faints at the mere sight of a drawn sword.
But Olaru is hiding a secret that flips that entire power dynamic on its head. He isn't just a cowardly poet. Olaru is actually a disguise adopted by Prince Chus, who is one of the immortal Lords of Darkness.
The Lord of Madness.
Lord of Madness himself. And the method he used to adopt this disguise is entirely mind-bending. The original human Olaru drank from a sorcerous forest pool and was transformed into a jackal.
Right.
So Chus, needing to hide from his eternal enemy, the demon Prince Osrarn, essentially hijacked the metaphysical mold left behind by the human Olaru.
Hold on, let me make sure I'm wrapping my head around that metaphysical mold concept. He didn't possess the jackal or, take over a human body.
No possession.
He literally poured his immortal essence into the conceptual human shape that the magic pool had emptied out. Like pouring water into a glass that was just emptied of wine.
That is a great way to visualize it. He stepped into the existential vacuum left by the human Olaru. And because Chus is the Lord of Madness, the disguise is so thorough that Chus forgets his own true identity.
He brainwashes himself.
Exactly. He wanders around actually believing he is just a frail human poet. But that hidden, dark intellect is still operating just beneath the surface.
You really see that underlying darkness in a cunning trick Olaru plays to manipulate Lakhazor. Olaru brings this sadistic magician back to his own family home, offering up his two virgin sisters for Lak's amusement.
Which is just awful to read at first.
On the surface, it sounds like the most horrific, cowardly betrayal imaginable. He's feeding his family to a monster just to stay in the monster's good graces.
It does seem completely irredeemable at first glance. But Olaru uses a highly targeted spell. He manipulates the environment so that when Lak assaults the sisters, he is only interacting with their shadows, their astral bodies.
Wow.
The sisters wake up the next morning entirely unharmed physically, though they are understandably terrified to find they no longer cast shadows. That is, until Olaru safely restores their astral bodies to them. It's a twisted, brilliant way to protect his family while fully indulging Lak's darkest desires to win his favor.
It's a total masterclass in manipulation. And why does Olaru need Lak's favor so badly? Because his subconscious goal, the urge driving this Lord of Madness, even when he doesn't know who he is to travel to the Underearth, the realm of the demons.
And human Olaru doesn't have the magic to get there.
Right, so he tricks Lak into an astral projection journey. Lak projects his soul down into the subterranean depths, and he carries Olaru with him. But Olaru doesn't travel as a human soul. He takes the form of a small, polished topaz die hanging around Lak's neck.
A seemingly insignificant object, which is exactly the point. Because this trip has horrific consequences for the magician. Once they reach the Underearth, the topaz die simply slips away. Lak is left completely alone, and his mortal sorcery fails him in this demonic realm. He finds himself chased down an endless, elongating marble road by the hounds of the Vajra.
Let's clarify the demons here, because the lore differentiates them beautifully. The Vajra are the fierce, cruel, aristocratic demons, right?
Exactly. They're the terrifying, blood-red predators of the Underearth. Lak is pulled down by their hounds, mauled, and then tortured by the mourning demon prince Osran before his broken soul is tossed into the river of sleep.
Brutal.
Yeah, Lak's agonizing punishment serves as the perfect, gruesome distraction.
While Lak is getting torn apart, Olaru, as the little topaz die, is off fulfilling a secret mission he didn't even consciously know he had. He travels across a crystal sea lake to a mist-shrouded island. The imagery here is stunning.
The world building is just phenomenal.
It really is. On this island is a hollow cliff of quartz that plays music like a massive natural instrument whenever the wind blows through it.
Inside this quartz cliff sleeps the daughter of Osran and a human woman named Dunazel. This girl has been abandoned by her father, attended only by fading, sorrowful Eshva demons.
The Eshva being the opposite of the Vajra hounds we just talked about.
Precisely. Picture a creature so purely emotional, so mute and melancholy, that it's just fading away from sheer ennui. They are literally dying of sadness. When the topaz die is brought to the sleeping girl's bed, it transforms back into the beautiful Olaru. He leans down and kisses her awake.
It plays out like a dark, corrupted fairy tale. He wakes her, and in doing so, he begins to wake up his own true identity as Choose, the Lord of Madness. But she is no helpless princess waiting to be rescued.
Definitely not.
Her father named her Azriaz, which was meant as a mocking, dismissive title. She completely rejects it. Instead, she claims the name Sovaz, which translates to witch. She is marking her own independence and asserting her immense, innate power from the very moment she opens her eyes.
Together, they make a dramatic escape. Sovaz summons a demonic, azure-maned horse. When they reach the massive gates of the Underearth, the gates refuse to open for her, so she taps into her human mother's heritage.
The duality of her character.
Yes, she uses the psychic symbol of the sun to blast through a gate of black fire. They ride an updraft of embers straight up a volcanic chimney and burst out into the dawn of the earth. It's a dawn that Sovaz is hopelessly drawn to, yet physically shrinks from, perfectly capturing her dual human-demon nature.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because now they are living on the surface of the earth as lovers. And you might expect an epic war, but their life is initially this bizarre, almost domestic mix of the mundane and the magical.
It's very surreal.
One day they're in a peasant cottage baking black bread, and the next they use sorcery to transform the cottage into a towering marble mansion where they feast on transparent wines.
There's a brilliant scene that highlights their strange power dynamic during this time on the surface. They wander into a town tavern, and a violent thug threatens them. Savaz, without breaking a sweat, uses her silver voice and absolute will to turn the thug into a literal farmyard pig.
Just a casual display of power.
Right, a casual flex of her growing sorceress muscle, but it also draws unwanted attention.
Right, because Azharn has finally tracked them down. You have Azharn, the Prince of Demons, confronting Chuz, the Lord of Madness, in the dark corner of a human tavern.
The tension in that scene is incredible. As Chuz points out to his rival, two immortal lords of darkness cannot fight a physical duel without destroying the world itself. Their power is too vast. So, to settle the score over the death of Azharn's former lover, which Chuz admits partial responsibility for a tragic bargain, is struck.
This is the moment that completely shifts the emotional weight of the story. Chuz agrees to accept Azharn's punishment. He agrees to give up his charming human disguise, his vast intellect, and his princely status.
It's heartbreaking.
He allows himself to become truly mad. He transforms into a foul, mindless, screeching beast, tearing at his own hair and flesh, hunted and stoned by the very humans he used to walk among.
It's a devastating sacrifice.
Yeah.
A lord of madness willingly giving himself over to actual, uncontrollable madness out of a distorted sense of honor, guilt, and love. This raises an important question for you, the listener. How far would you go for love? Because Savaz, who is fiercely proud and has every reason to hate the world that rejects her, abandons her pride completely.
She gives up everything.
She chooses to follow this wretched, floundering beast across the desolate corners of the earth, protecting him as best she can.
So she has this immense power. She's finally free from her crystal prison in the underearth, but she's chained herself to this mindless beast. What does that actually look like on a day-to-day survival level in a world that hates them?
It's grueling.
Her journey following the beast takes her into some of the most barren, accursed lands imaginable, and that naturally brings us to a blanched, bone-white plain where she meets an outcast named Jedrid. Jedrid wears a gold pectoral and a heavy ring, and he tries to warn Savaz away from the city that lies ahead. To explain why, he tells her the story of his past.
Jedrid's backstory is a masterclass in building slow dread. Years ago, as a wealthy merchant's son, he was offered a spectacularly beautiful bride named Liliu. He was told her father was elderly and deathly ill and could not bear the son. Therefore, Liliu had adopted a completely nocturnal lifestyle.
Convenient.
Very. Jedrid accepts this without too much suspicion, marries her, and is completely captivated by her beauty.
But then, a servant accidentally spills some salt, a classic bad omen in folklore, right? Which leads to a tearful confession. The servant reveals she saw Liliu emerging from under the courtyard paving stones just before dawn, washing blood and filth off her shift at the well.
So creepy.
Jedrid is horrified. He investigates the cellars, finds a secret path into the ancient catacombs beneath the city, and waits in the dark for nightfall.
He follows Liliu deep through the catacombs to a massive, ruined tomb in a burial ground. From the roof, he looks down and sees an absolute nightmare. Liliu is one of a group of 9 extraordinarily beautiful ghouls. They are drinking different colored wines from golden goblets and feasting on the fresh corpses of humans.
And as if the cannibalism isn't bad enough, the ghouls are bragging to each other. They boast about how they have all infiltrated wealthy human families to secure resources and horribly to breed, since their own kind cannot reproduce without human DNA.
It's a parasitic invasion.
Jedrid realizes his entire marriage is a predatory sham.
He manages to escape unseen. The next night, at a family banquet, he exposes Liliu in front of everyone and plunges a dagger straight into her heart. She dies. They bury her. But on the third night, she appears at the foot of his bed, laughing, and drinks his blood. She tells him physical weapons cannot permanently kill her flesh.
This is where the lore becomes deeply fascinating to me, because it's not just, vampires are immune to swords, it's highly technical. After 2 local mages fail miserably to stop her, a third mage arrives and breaks down the exact magical mechanics of these ghouls. He explains that they are partly etheric.
Yes, the third mage explains that because these ghouls aren't fully material, their shadows aren't just an absence of light like yours or mine. Their shadows actually have a semi-physical mass. They are partly corporate, made of their physical atoms being pushed out by the light.
Okay, I want to make sure I'm visualizing this right for anyone listening. It's almost like if you shine a painfully bright light on them, the light acts as a physical pressure. It actually pushes their semi-physical etheric mass out of their body and into the shadow on the wall or the floor, like wringing water out of a sponge.
That's a perfect analogy. The intense light forces their supernatural essence to pool into their shadow. The mage tells Jedrid to wait for Liliu with a very bright lamp. When she approaches his bed, the intense light forces a large portion of her etheric atoms into her shadow on the sheets. Jedrid takes a knife and slashes the shadow away from her.
The sensory details in the text here are wild. The severed shadow frays and tears like silk, bleeding a transparent ichor. He rolls up the severed shadow, which feels slimy like seaweed, and seals it in an airtight sack. Severed from this massive chunk of her own atomic structure, Liliu loses all her supernatural strength and becomes completely powerless.
But she has one last devastating twist for Jedrid. And she lies there defeated, aging rapidly without her power. She reveals that she is already pregnant with his half-ghoul son. The child is born, and Liliu dies. Jedrid goes to look at the baby, fully intending to destroy it to protect the world. But the baby reaches up and grabs his finger, and in that moment of vulnerability, Jedrid spares him.
A completely understandable human reaction, but a decision that dooms the entire city. Jedrid's son and the half-ghoul offspring of the other 8 vampires grow up to take over. They conquer the city, renaming it Shudum, the city of the Portioners. Jedrid is cast out, forced to live in the caves. But as he finishes telling this harrowing story to Sovaz on the blanched plain, the trap springs.
Jedrid isn't a friendly warner. He's a procurer for the ghouls. His accomplices, who turn out to be terrifying monkey creatures, bind Sovaz in steel ropes. They drag her down into the oppressive, death-soaked atmosphere of Shudum to be fed to the ghoul princes.
It's an ambush.
Exactly. When they bring her into the pitch-black, bone-decorated hall, the ghoul prince is mesmerized by her. He promises to keep her alive for a day, but tells her that eventually they will eat her, and he will turn her beautiful blue eyes into crystal rings for his fingers.
He expects her to cower, just like every other human they've dragged down there. But Sovaz isn't a human merchant's son. The horrific atmosphere of Shudum hasn't broken her. It has fully awakened her demonic Vazdir nature. She looks at this terrifying ghoul prince and coldly tells him that his threats mean nothing to her. She isn't his prisoner. She is simply taking her leisure, deciding what she is going to do with him.
It is a phenomenal shift in power, and it brings all the disparate threads of our deep dive together.
So what does this all mean? We've gone from a poet turning into a jackal, to a shadow being sliced off with a knife, to a half-human rich staring down a ghoul prince. I'm seeing a pattern here. We talk about magic and demons, but the real destructive force in this universe seems to be vulnerability.
Exactly. We synthesize these narratives, a profound theme emerges. Whether we are looking at the overarching tragedy of Sovaz and Chuz, or the deeply unsettling embedded tale of Jedrid and Liliu, we see the exact same vulnerability. Love, in all its forms, opens these characters up to madness, betrayal, and dark, irreversible transformations. Jedrid's love for his monstrous son doomed an entire city. Chuz's love and guilt regarding Sovaz cost him his very mind.
It really makes you think. The incredibly rich, dark lore of the Flat Earth isn't just about cool magic systems or bizarre monsters. It's actually a distorted mirror. It reflects the extreme sacrifices, the completely irrational choices, and the profound vulnerabilities that humans experience every day when they are driven by passion. You give up pieces of yourself for the people you love. Sometimes, metaphorically speaking, you give up your shadow.
You let yourself be hollowed out. And that brings up the overarching architecture of this universe, the forces pulling the strings behind the scenes.
Before we wrap up, there's one final chilling detail buried deep in the lore that we haven't touched on yet. Throughout this deep dive, we've talked about the Lords of Darkness. Azrarn, the Prince of Demons. Chuz, the Lord of Madness. These are distinct entities with names, domains, and personalities. But there is actually a 5th Lord of Darkness.
Yes. The author describes this entity as a personification of the material from which all things come, the foundational matter of existence itself. But she leaves his name blank. He is completely unnamed.
That is wild to me.
Think about what it means when the most terrifying, foundational, and powerful force of darkness in an entire universe remains completely unnamed. It defies categorization. You cannot bargain with something you cannot name. You cannot predict it. It just is.
So as you go about your day, ask yourself what unnamed forces or unacknowledged shadows are shaping the reality around you every single day. We are all driven by underlying currents we haven't quite put a label on yet. Thanks for taking this plunge with us into the Flat Earth. Keep questioning, keep digging, and we will catch you on the next deep dive.